Marjolein currently works as freelance Scrum Master, and she's also passionate about our planet Earth, our most important stakeholder, of course. And she's currently raising awareness in the Agile community on sustainability. Please give a warm welcome to Marjolein.
Hello. Sorry? Yeah, it's okay. Yeah. Okay, good morning, everybody. It's so great to be standing here. Today, we're going to talk about the planet as our stakeholder. And the way this started was about 1 year ago when I started to ask my teams this question: what would you do differently if you considered planet Earth as your stakeholder? Now, why did I start doing this? It was actually because it was the summer of 2022, and I realized that I had done many things to reduce my carbon footprint. We had 40 solar panels on our roof and stuff like that, but it all felt so small and insignificant compared to the magnitude of climate change. And then one day I was walking in the forest and I realized I have actually no idea what the carbon footprint of my DevOps teams is. What is the footprint of all the applications that we are running? And then I asked questions about it. And they were like, we literally have no idea. We have never thought about this. And they were really intrigued by my questions, so we decided to do a retrospective about it. So we did a planet retrospective. And I prepared it for them, and we discussed sustainable engineering principles. And we had never heard of them before. So it was about carbon awareness, energy efficiency, hardware efficiency, and it was really far away from our bed show. But it opened this new paradigm, and we discussed and we brainstormed what can we do to reduce our footprint. Now, this was a team that had a lot of legacy components, and they figured that if they reduce or would decommission some of these components that they no longer use, they might easily reduce their footprint by maybe 10 or 20%. And that really got me thinking. I was like, what if all DevOps teams would have this conversation? We could have such impact, right? So, and that is the story that I want to share with you today. And I will share with you some of my learnings. We'll talk about the challenge that we are facing, the footprint of IT, and also the greening of IT. And then I will share some practical ideas with you on how to get started. And by the end, we'll also define some actionable steps. So I would also like you to define some first steps that you can take to reduce your IT carbon footprint with your team. So, but before we begin, we're going to do a check-in, because I'm a Scrum Master, so you also have to do a check-in with me. And this is a walking skill, but I will do the walking for you. Now, I would only like to ask you to stand up when I'm in the spot that you are emotionally standing when it comes to our planetary challenges. So if you feel about our planetary challenges that we have nothing to worry about, then stand up when I'm here, and then I can stand here, and okay, you get it right? Okay. So first of all, please, will you stand up if you feel like, no, we have really nothing to worry about. The climate changes always. There's nothing new under the sun. Is there anybody? And there's no judgment, right? You can stand up if you feel like that. Cool. Okay. So okay, yeah, there will be a bit of judgment, yeah. Okay, then the next. There's no need for panic. With the right actions, we will be fine. Will you please stand up? Thank you, thank you. So what is this about? 1/4 of the audience? Yeah, thank you. Okay, you can be seated now. Okay, so then the next is only drastic action can save us. Is this how you feel? Then please stand up. Wow, okay. Significantly more people. Okay, cool, thank you. Please be seated. And then the last option, we are doomed. Okay, we laugh about it, right? We're doomed, the apocalypse is upon us. Okay. There's nothing we can do, thank you. All right, so now we're all checked in. So let's have a look at the challenge that we are facing. Now, this is a picture of Earth, right? And like you can see carbon as a blanket around the Earth. Now, this is really a natural process. So the sunlight gets in to the Earth's surface, and then the carbon blanket keeps the warmth on the Earth, and it enables life to thrive on Earth. And this is necessary, of course, but now we're pumping these huge amounts of carbon into the atmosphere, and the heat can't go away anymore. So that is why we really have to do something. We have to cut our carbon emissions. And what I also firmly believe is that we really have to turn the lens inward, because we have the power to make a change. Now, according to scientists, we have until 2030 to reduce our carbon footprint with at least 55% in order to reach the goal of climate neutrality by 2050. So, towards a safe and stable climate. Now, what is the situation in IT? What is our IT carbon footprint? Now, data centers consume 1 to 2% of global electricity today. But when you include device production and life cycle, the footprint of IT is estimated to be about 4%, and it's growing exponentially, of course. Now, by 2030, data centers could consume as much as 8%, according to the Harvard Business Review. And also according to Harvard Business Review, by 2040, it is expected to account for about 14% of the world's carbon footprint. So, in comparison, the carbon footprint of IT is larger than that of aviation. Now, it's hard to compare these footprints, but scientists say if you would compare this, this is what you can say. If the internet were a country, it would be 7th on the list of largest polluters. Its carbon footprint is comparable to a country like South Africa's. Now, as I said before, climate neutrality must be achieved by 2050. And in order to reach that goal, we must cut our carbon emissions by at least 55% in 2030. So, that is quite a gap, right? So, actually, the carbon footprint is rising. But when you want to acknowledge the Paris Agreement, there's quite a gap to fill. Now, before we continue, I would like to invite you to go to Mentimeter. And we'll have a look at what is needed to cut our carbon emissions with 55% by 2030. Now, my Mentimeter has a really hard time. So I wanted to put a word cloud on here, but does the DevOps Day speaker network still, is it available? Nee. Oh, nu wel weer. Okay, I didn't expect that much input. Okay, so a lot is needed, right? And you have a lot of ideas, so that is awesome. So there's some things that I see: optimization, awareness, really important one. Communism. Efficiency, yeah, DevOps. Repairability, also very important one. Okay. Yeah, get rid of social media. Right. Thank you. Okay. Now, when we talk of the greening of IT, this is really about an inward-looking approach. So how do we have applications that add the same value but emit less carbon? Now, when you talk about this, it's about hardware production, hardware life cycle, energy uses, all kinds of things that applications that give applications a carbon footprint. Now, I'm a Scrum Master, so I'm not a very technical person, right? But I have been a Scrum Master for about 5 years now and worked with engineers a lot. So I've learned one or two things about IT. And the one thing that I really learned is to ask my teams questions and to ask them critical questions about why are we doing certain things? How can we break big chunks of work into smaller chunks? How can we reduce complexity? Now, of course, the things that we are talking about now are really complex. Now, when you talk about reducing the carbon footprint, you can ask yourself questions about the performance of our applications, because what do we really need? What do we really need in terms of availability, but also in terms of performance? What does the customer really need, and have we truly understood that? And how do you balance the performance that you deliver with the climate impact? Also about availability. Now, is it really, really necessary that your applications are always available? Have you thought about maybe you could switch things off in the weekends, or maybe you could switch things off in the evenings or in the nights? I don't know, but have you asked yourself the question, you know? So then talking about redundancy, have you truly assessed the necessity and the ecological implications of your redundancy measures? So is it really necessary to have high redundancy measures? Now, of course, I don't underestimate the value of redundancy, okay? So, but it's just about being critical and asking yourself the question what the climate implications are. And if that is in balance, what you are asking from the planet and what you are delivering. So then one more important thing is waste. Now, waste could be over-provisioning resources, or leaving idle servers running, or storing redundant data. There's all kinds of things that you can think about. And if you actively manage this, you can really significantly reduce your footprint, right? So it's all about finding the sweet spot that meets the business needs and also minimizes environmental impact. Now, if you run your applications in the cloud, you can get started by measuring your carbon footprint. I don't know if are there any people that know these dashboards, the Azure emissions dashboard, and do you actually use it? And then you have the AWS carbon footprint dashboard as well. What I would like to say about this is if you have these dashboards, you can use them. By all means, do that. But I also had a team that was still running their applications on-prem, and they they wanted to start with measuring their footprint, but it was so complex and it was such a big user story that they never even got started. So in that case, I would encourage you to start with a small step and then measure your savings in terms of carbon instead of measuring your entire footprint upfront. Okay, so 3 practical ideas. This is what I really learned together with my teams, right? So the first thing is about identifying the low-hanging fruit. So just start the conversation. You don't need to be an expert on sustainability or an expert in IT carbon footprint to start a conversation. I didn't know anything about it, but I just started a conversation and people really were intrigued by it and wanted to do something with it. So when you ask these new questions, it raises awareness. Now, what I also do with teams is we have a look at, we do a brainstorm, what we just did in the word cloud. And then I ask them, what of these things are within your circle of influence? Now, a lot of these things are in your circle of concern, right? So, yeah, how do you influence them? How do you pull them inward? Now, if you talk about, sometimes people say, yeah, it's a tender management. We also have sustainability, to add sustainability in our tenders. How could you pull that inward if you are not in tender management? Well, you could do a small action by maybe like talking to a person that is in charge, stuff like that. And then also, you can have a look at the green software patterns. The Green Software Foundation has a whole catalog of green software patterns. And they, if you apply them, you will reduce your footprint. Now, in my last slide, I have resources, so then I also have a link to the patterns, so you can have a look there. And then, what I really learned is really important is to start with small steps. Now, if you look at the climate, it is such a big thing, right? How are we going to tackle that? By taking small steps. Now here, you see that guy standing there. The first step is the hardest. So break it into smaller steps. And then you can at least take the first one. And then you do inspect and adapt, continuous improvement, and you gain new insights, and then you can take the next step. Small steps get you started. A plan is important, but getting started is more important. Now, small steps also reduce carbon, right? I mean, you may think, oh, it's so insignificant what I'm doing, but it's not insignificant. You'd already save emissions. And what I also found that is really important is that when you get started, you do reduce your carbon, but it's also like this inward feeling that from many people in the climate thing, they have this imagined powerlessness. We can't do anything. What do I do? What power do I have? And when you start acting, you go from imagined powerlessness to empowerment. And small actions taken collectively make a huge impact. Now, I would like to illustrate that with this example from one of my teams. We did a Planet as a Stakeholder workshop in, I think in November, October, November. And then they defined one first step that they wanted to do. And if I remember correctly, it was about dismantling a test environment that they no longer used. So now this was at Rabobank, and I left Rabobank, but I was in touch with one of the team members last week. And then he sent me this, and he said, we have reduced our carbon footprint, according to this dashboard, by already 40%. By starting small, and they continued. They did a sustainability sprint, but they did all kinds of things. And as you see, the trend is going down. Now, they have multiple environments, and on one environment, they reduced the footprint by 75%. Now, this is the totals, and that makes 40%. So just to encourage you, right? Okay, one other thing that you can do is to embed sustainability in your way of working. Now, as a Scrum Master, I'm of course about the process. And what I've seen is that it can be helpful to add the planet like literally as a stakeholder in your epic templates or in your user story templates. And you'll have to find out for yourself and for your team what level is appropriate, if you should add it in your epics or wherever. But it can be really helpful because with everything that you do, you consider the planet. Now, you can also start making it a recurrent item in your retrospectives and in your sprint reviews. So then you ask yourself also in your sprint review, other stakeholders see, oh, this team is really doing something about the planet. And so you have this, you also raise awareness like in the broader organization. And another thing that can be helpful is to add carbon efficiency to your definition of done. So that in every finished work item, you know that you also considered the planet. Now, I would like to do a small interaction with you, and I would like to ask you to turn to your neighbor, like we did this morning, but with a slightly different question. I would like to ask you to discuss in 1 or 2 minutes, what is a small action that you can start with right away, or right on your next work day? And then define at least one small step, and then you can share this in couples, and I would also like to encourage you to share ideas and to refine your actions and see if they are really actionable, doable, and have an impact. And then I'll put a Menti up again, hope it works. It works great now. And then you can put your first steps that you are going to take in a Menti. you. So just take 10 seconds to put your last action here in here. Okay, stop this voting. We'll do that. Beer. Well, there's actually some great ideas in here. The carbon footprint dashboard, get to use it. Raise awareness. Stop tests running at night, I saw. Yeah, talk about it, because talking about it raises awareness, and that is what you need to get started. Yeah, start a conversation. Great. Yeah, and I also see there, oh no, I don't see it anymore. Stop using video calls. Now, okay, I always encourage my, my team members to use video, right? But I think you should be mindful about in what meetings do you use them and in what meetings you don't. Yeah, cool. Oh, wait. So, because I really believe that our small actions that we take collectively will help the planet, and we can make a change together. So, thank you all for defining these actions. And if you would like to learn more, and if you would like to find more inspiration and resources, you can use this QR code. It goes to my website, where I have a list of all kinds of links to scientific research, to inspiration that you can do, the Planet as a Stakeholder workshop, the Planet as a Stakeholder retrospective. You can do it with your team as well. And you can find all other stuff there as well. So, thank you very much for having me, and thank you very much for your attendance.